Welcome back to Kino's Summer Series 2024. We're here. We're watching Dog Day Afternoon, Sidney Lumet. We haven't done one of his films on here yet. We're going to do Network later in the year. And I was kind of debating which one to do first because I was thinking it'd be cool to talk about Network in relation to this film, but that's okay. We're gonna do Dog Day Afternoon.
No,
Oh,
we can reference back. There's a lot of media stuff in both of these. Certainly more network. Also, I do like that we're having is it back-to-back bank robberies? We have a lot of bank robbery movies this
yeah.
month.
Yeah, total coincidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is I was about to say, did you plan that?
I wrote them back to back when I wrote the schedule, but I didn't even think about it. But
Right. And yeah, this is if you had not put this in the summer series, I wouldn't have pointed it out myself as necessarily as a summer movie. But watching it with the oppressive heat, escalating throughout this movie, I'm like, yeah,
creeps in.
it creeps in. And man, I don't know, you've never been to New York. New York gets hot. You think it's up north, it'll be cool in the summer. Dude, that concrete bakes it in, and
Yeah, I
it's
bet.
coming city heat when it's coming up below you and you just can't escape it. Sucks.
Yeah.
It's
And that
it's it's its own atmosphere, man. Different than the muggy southern humidity crap we've
God.
had going on this week.
Yeah, for sure. And all great summer movies take the time to show the community and that the film's set in like the summer vibes going on, the heat and how it affects people. People are hanging around, going to the beach, pouring water on the sidewalks just to cool it down by 1 degree. And then simultaneously, every good city movie takes the time to show the city and make it feel alive and all that. And so now we've got both of these doing the same thing at the same time, knocking two out at once. So you really get a sense of you get the 70s urban New York, which we love so much and have talked about plenty on this cast just by happenstance. And I love it. It's the portrayal of raw humanity pretty much every
There's
time.
really nothing more American in cinema than just a gritty New York movie. Like
Yeah.
that's it. That is the epitome. You can argue LA, but that's all Hollywood. I mean, if you want the real shit and the real America, that gritty New York, you have in this movie, you have Italians and LGBT before the acronym was even established. You have all sorts of things, all the different class structures and politics of the 70s involved. Um, it kind of packaged in an otherwise unassuming premise, because on its surface, it's a bank robbery movie. And they weren't advertising this movie in the 70s as like, come see gay representation or come see like a weird portrayal of like post Vietnam tensions or post Watergate tensions. But that's what this movie is really about, is all of that in the social environment of the time. Even though it's based on a true story, that's just the vehicle to get through, to touch upon at least all these other things. I think Lumet's smart enough to, he knows a thing or two about filmmaking. And he and he's always had, I think, a social justice, even going back to 12 Angry Men, which it's almost funny watching that movie now to be like, what, the kid's Sicilian or something, and that's like he's a minority or something. And now it's like, okay. But I feel like he's always had that bent. And it's certainly true here. And I love watching a movie from this era that's still relevant, still relevant.
Well, it's thanks to 12 Angry Men that not completely, but it was one of those movies we watched in ninth grade. And as we broke down what made the film work and why it was so effective, even though it wasn't a film class, it was just social studies. It really made my brain kind of rewire a bit, be like, oh, I've been watching movies, but I haven't been watching movies the right way for a lot of I need to rewatch some of these classics and really analyze them and see what they're trying to convey with the pairing of images and angles and all kinds of composition and stuff. And it's just like that was such I was like, they were doing this in the 50s. I had no idea, a 14-year-old
No,
kid.
it's definitely. I think that movie's a rite of passage for a lot of people, and I
Yeah.
think and I think for a lot of kids who like view just kind of automatically, without even seeing them, view old movies or movies in black and white as boring. And they're like, oh, this can be. Also, Sidney is just a master of the single location film, which this film is basically a single location film as well.
Yeah,
Um,
mostly.
and it's, I mean, yeah, you're out in the street and stuff, but I mean, there's a version of this movie that could work as a stage play. I'm not saying you wouldn't have to like switch some things up, but like you could probably figure
Oh,
something out.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, if you've ever tried to write, it's actually, at least for me, um, it's harder to write a play. I took playwriting classes, and I'm glad, because like you're basically forced to have a limited locations because you can't just cut to Algeria in the middle of the play. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe in Act Two you can in the intermission set some stuff up, but like it really focuses you to work on just having strong characters and dialogues and objectives and drama through that. And you're not able to use a lot of, I think you're like Hollywood crutches of, who is it? Raymond Chandler, who's like, when in doubt, send a man through the door with a gun, but you can't necessarily do that in a play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and and obviously, it keeps the budget down, and this movie doesn't need to be anything bigger. Um, and I'm kind of rambling here, but also this movie made me miss the star system in a way, which people used to go to the movies for stars, and they still kind of do that. But it's not the selling point it used to be. IP has replaced stars. I'm not the first one to say this. I'm not the 100th person to say this. The superhero killed the movie star. IP killed the movie star. But like the advantage of having the movie star is like you can stick them in anything. You can stick them in any genre, and people would go see it for that. So they might go see movies that otherwise the high concept alone may not draw them in. Because I've even heard people criticize blockbusters for like movies have to rely too much on the high concept now to get people in versus just being a good drama or what have you.
Right.
But I mean, if you're Al Pacino, you can see him in all sorts of. I mean, he's most known for crime, but I guess this, Scarface, and The Godfather are about as different as three crime movies can get.
Yeah.
Um, and you can also see him in Jack and Jill. So a lot of things. What happened to dude? What happened to Al? Did he just
Yeah.
hit a kid?
Yeah. What a crazy bastard.
I was at the dentist like a year ago or whatever, and like is on the TV, and like the person stopped cleaning my teeth, and we just started like talking in the middle of this thing that I paid for to be like, what's wrong with people? What is he doing? Is he too old and slow to pull out? Is that the problem?
The man has had his day. I don't know. It's crazy because to get him to star in this role, because there's that shift halfway through the movie where you learn why he's doing this and where it all has come from. And it's kind of shocking because it's a 50-year-old movie. And it was, I'm going to say, I can see why he was kind of hesitant, not because of the subject matter, but just because he was worried his portrayal would be too much over the top. And I respect Lumet for making sure his partner wasn't like a drag stereotype and wanted to make sure
No,
he's grounded.
they don't play it gay. His partner slightly. Leonard like has some slightly more effeminate qualities, but it's very subtle. I mean, there's not a bad performance in this movie at all.
So I was worried.
There's not even a mediocre performance. I think everybody, even the side characters, the hostages, I think they all do great
Yeah.
job. And it's all there on the page, in that sense makes it easy for them, when actors get to actually act in
Yeah.
sets. But it's an Al, and he has to for the first half of the movie. Like it'd be weird in the first half of the movie before the reveal he was like flamboyant, and he'd be like, well, this is out of character, what's happening here, that reveal.
Yeah.
But
But
the you see a lot of older movies and like their depictions of gay characters. There's also like villains who are effeminate that show up in old movies,
yeah.
You can see stuff like Way of the Dragon, dude. There's like a really effeminate villain in that. And I'm like, this is weird. I don't like
The
this.
the first half of the movie really feels like it could be a satirical comedy, dark comedy. A lot of that is in there, even though it's very serious. And but there's just so many obvious things that they're going for with the tone. It's a good striking balance, but as soon as like I was actually pretty shocked by how well they did the second half, where it gets a bit more serious, a bit way more personal, and you get from him going in and out and talking to the police and figuring stuff out and kind of just laying around to now he's having extended conversations on the phone with his people, and then an extended sequence where he's writing his will, and it's just completely changes. And I find that really fascinating. And it's just like you get to just watch him do work when it comes to acting. It's really cool.
Yeah, and Al, it's Al. Does he just need to be reined in? Is that the thing? But sometimes when he goes big, it works. Like I'm looking at his filmography right now. I'm like, what has he done recently? He did House of Gucci, which I didn't see because I heard it was just
Yeah.
not good. Yeah, I was just like, I don't, it's another miss from Ridley Scott. Dude, what the hell is Gladiator gonna be? Is that supposed to come out this year?
I think it's next year.
Next year, dude. That has gone tremendously over budget. That's like a $400 million.
Yeah, I'm so interested
now.
to see what it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be like mythology elements in it, even though the first one's pretty realistic. I mean, you get
Okay,
some.
I never saw. I'm gonna watch.
I may be full of crap with that. I don't know.
I haven't.
Um,
Yeah, that's one that just went under my radar for years. I just
because
didn't bother.
why?
I'm gonna watch it though.
Spoilers if you haven't seen. Have you seen Gladiator?
No, I haven't.
Oh well, it's never mind then. But it's good. I don't know if it's best picture good, but I like it.
I'm gonna watch it anyway.
It's a movie. It's a movie I enjoy more for the action and set pieces and sets than I do
Sure.
like the characters are hero villain. I mean they're fun to watch. Joaquin Phoenix playing a villain is always fun to see.
Sure.
We're not here to talk about Gladiator, but I do want to share this that Joaquin Phoenix, his plan for that, he plays the emperor. He like the son who becomes the emperor, becomes more and more decadent and corrupt. His plan was to like eat and gain weight throughout the shoot, like as the movie went on. And then Ridley Scott was like, "What? No, don't do that. What are you doing? I don't want you." And something like most movies aren't shot in sequence.
Yeah, I was gonna
anyway.
say, how would that even work?
Yeah, I was like, highly doubt a movie of that budget is shot in sequence. Highly doubt.
That would be fucking insane.
Like this movie, Dog Day Afternoon, you could shoot in sequence. That's fine. But like this, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's Walking's so weird.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I would like to. I'd like to, since it's such a scene by scene. I would also like to go scene by scene because it's such a like a weird, all in one day kind of movie.
Yeah,
But
no, it's one of the best. And I will say what you said about scene by scene, this movie does an amazing job of like it's always tense from like minute 2 to the very last shot, basically. To the point where I was watching it in the living room and my roommate comes in and he's kind of looking at it and I'm like, this is 20 minutes into the movie. And he was like, oh, I thought this was the end. I'm like, no, this is just starting.
yeah, it was, yeah. And that's like the whole like thing they used to grab people for this movie is like, this is supposed to be a 10-minute bank heist and it's been like 14 hours or some shit, it's like lasted all day or something. And it was, I knew going in that it was based off of a real event. But that's all I really knew mostly. I knew John Cazale was in it. I had read an interesting article years ago from Film School Rejects about John Cazale. And, because he didn't live long after this. He only was in like 5 or 6 movies. He did The Godfathers and then this and then I think Deer Hunter, and that's his big hitters, which are really fucking big heavy hitters.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good
some of the most acclaimed films of all time, but he has an interesting presence in this movie too.
He's such an interesting presence. He's kind of a similar like I don't want to say greaseball, because that starts to sound anti-Italian. I don't mean it like that, but just in the, Fredo's such a like lovable yet hateable character. Like
Yeah,
you love him like an idiot brother because he is, and I
yeah.
think everybody has like known that a version of that person in their life, even though they're not involved in the mob. Of course, I see John Cazale in this movie, and I'm like, he's gonna die, isn't he? Like, damn it. Yeah. I was like, there's no way this guy's
Well,
living.
he's so like the whole time you're trying to really get a grasp on him, and the whole time I'm thinking there's gonna be a point where this guy does something crazy, he snaps or something, but it doesn't happen, which I think is interesting.
You know what it reminds me of? And
What?
I don't think it's as exploitative as this. It reminds me of Good Time, of how he enlists his mentally disabled little brother. Now, Sal isn't mentally disabled or mentally challenged, but you get the sense, and I have not read much on the actual bank heist because I wanted to, take the movie on its own terms,
Yeah,
and just talk about it in a more formal sense as a
yeah.
piece of filmmaking. But I mean, I got the sense it doesn't, did it say Sal was also in Vietnam? I assume that he was also in Vietnam, or that's how they know
I
each other.
think so, which would make sense.
That just makes sense from his character. It seems like he has some PTSD, like he doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot else going on. And
'Cause
how
he's
else
like
would these two know
immediately
each other?
ready to like either do this or kill himself. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, and speaking of like just little moments, where Sonny is like, well, do you have anybody you want to call? And he thinks about it and he's like, no, he just doesn't have anybody.
Yeah.
Also, when he's like, this is public school at work, when he says, what country do you want to go to? Wyoming. I don't know.
Yeah, like what?
Might as well be a different country if you're in Manhattan, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, yeah. Also, like the detail, I like that yeah, because he keeps his cool, but it seems like he's not keeping his cool at the same time. It just looks like he's about to like shoot everyone dead at any minute now. It's crazy that he
well,
didn't.
if I was in any public place and a guy looking like that walked in with a trench coat, I would leave
Yeah.
immediately. It's one of
Yeah.
those. It doesn't matter. I could be in a daycare anywhere. Like you wouldn't. Whole Foods doesn't matter. I get out of it. I don't shop at Whole Foods, by the way, if you couldn't tell.
The real
Um,
guy he's based off of, I think Warner Bros. Paid for his funeral, which is,
really?
I guess. And the reason the real Sonny, his partner, actually got the sex change is because of the money they paid to him for his rights to the story. And so he gave like a third of that to her to get her sex change. So it all worked out.
Yeah. Were people complaining about woke Hollywood back then?
Yeah.
I guess.
Anyway,
Yeah, now they don't even want to pay their actors or writers royalties. But
yeah.
they'll pay for people's funerals and stuff. Yeah, what happened, Warner Brothers? Zaslav, what happened?
But the
Also,
very
why is this on Paramount Plus and not Warner HBO Max? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't understand
But
anything. The new Batman show's coming out on Amazon Prime, but the Superman show's on HBO. I don't. What's happening? I don't know. Back to
Paramount
cable. We're in cable again.
for real. The
Uh,
so the very first scene, there's three guys, Sonny, and then Sal, and then the other guy. I'm not really sure what he was going to be doing the whole time.
I think he was just more muscle, but
Yeah.
he um he pretty much knew immediately, like, I'm just gonna mess this up. Which is, he's kind of the smartest guy in the movie because we don't know what happens to him. And I don't know what happened to him in real life. I like to think he just got away with it. He just got away
Yeah, he
scot-free.
just ditched out. He's like,
He was
I'm
just
not
like, "No, nah,
doing
I'm
this.
good. I'm not doing this." I've done that. I've had, like, I've been to social functions where I'm like, I feel like a fight's about to break out. I'm gonna leave, and then it happens. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just do
Oh,
what I'm
you're
doing.
saying I feel like robbing a bank, but I'm not gonna do it.
No, 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 no. I mean, I honestly at this point I probably should rob a bank because I don't have enough to pay rent and credit card next month. So we'll figure that out.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny because like I don't know, it's so obvious that Sonny's walking in with a box that's like a present. It's like the most gun-shaped box. It's so funny to me.
It might as well have gun written on it.
Yeah, like that's when I was like, okay, this guy is not the smartest.
and I'm sure bank tellers have to be trained to like look for suspicious packages and shit.
Well, this reminds me of the flower box that Arnold has in Terminator 2 that
I
he's
was gonna
like
say that.
out of. Yeah, and that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, yeah, I would
That's
have
way
ditched this
more
quick.
inconspicuous though than
Yeah,
just walking into a bank with that. But these guys, that's the thing. You know from the first scene that these people are complete amateurs. It takes them like 5 minutes to spray paint the cameras. And then like I'm like, well,
yeah,
they
he's
already
like
got
trying his
you.
best.
You're already on there. You
That's
know,
yeah. As soon
there's
as
so many
that,
subtle touches when he has to get on the chair like he's a short little old lady changing a light bulb, dude. Because in real life, Al Pacino's like 5 foot -1 or something. I don't know. Always,
what's
it's
all
always
these
fun to
little
look up
things like
how
that?
short actors are. Most of them are short. They're all like 5'6".
Yeah,
Tom Cruise is banging women like who are like 5'9" models, and he's just like having to
let's
climb up their legs to suck on their boobies.
okay.
Oh,
Anyway, um, yeah, it's just little things like that that I'm like, this is pretty funny. This is a funny
oh, it's
movie.
cringe comedy.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
like,
comedy of errors.
cause like if he had zero empathy, they'd already be done. They'd already be out of there. But the fact that he's like even considering letting them go to the bathroom and stuff is insane. It's like, what are you doing, dog?
No, and that's so good on so many levels because it gives you empathy for the character.
Yeah.
Because I was rooting for the bank robbers the whole movie. I'm like, this seems like a just cause. It's only $1,100. It's insured. Fuck the insurance
Yeah, it's
companies.
insured. Like, who cares? Just
Yeah.
and no one's like trying to be a hero, which is good. Especially that the manager guy who says,
Yeah.
"I'm salary. I'm not gonna be a hero." That's so real.
Yeah, dude. No, anybody that's such an ego thing. If you try to stop a robbery, or like anybody who's like, yeah, I got a gun, I'll stop the robbery. Like in Point Break, there's that
Yeah, in
scene.
Point Break, I was just thinking of that.
I
Go
got a
watch our
gun. It's
last
like, dude,
episode
it's
if you
insured.
haven't.
It's insured. It's people don't realize that. And there's ink packs like and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had them back then. Um,
Yeah, we've done a lot of crime movies.
well, there are a lot of crime movies.
I know. Some
Uh,
of them are
if you
good.
want to make a realistic film with drama, it's hard. Where in life are you going to find more drama? Um, Al Pacino's been in a few of them. It's kind of in Scarface. There's a similar thing where like arguably his moral compass is what leads to his downfall. If he had just been more of a ruthless bastard the entire time, um, which you know what ruthless bastard does end up on top? Corleone,
Yeah.
Corleone. So there's two morals to this movie. Be ruthless if you're gonna be a criminal, kill people, and I guess don't be trans. I don't know if that's part of it. Because then your people get shot. Uh,
It's just I also like just the escalation, the very fast escalation. It's like, okay, we see the cops pull up, and then we see the cop snipers get on the roof, then we see the SWAT team, and then the FBI pulls up, and then all the spectators pull up, and then the media pulls up, and it's like this big thing, like almost like a montage, but it's just like adds to the comedy of it's like how this half-ass small bank heist can get suddenly everyone and everywhere and everyone in like this block in this area, and it's just like this is when the bank heist becomes more than a bank heist. It becomes this another form of escapism for everybody. It's like
yeah,
a movie. People are bored, they're hot, they have nothing going on, and it's a
right.
spectacle.
Dude, daytime TV in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, nah, I'd rather watch a bank heist going outside my door. There's a point in that it becomes such a comedy of errors. You almost expect Pacino to look into the camera and slap his forehead and be like, I don't know how I'm getting out of this one.
Yeah, you're probably wondering how I got myself
You
in
probably
here.
want I got in
Yeah.
this situation.
This is like even at this point, like that woman's husband is like calling to see when they'll be done. And she's like, you can go ahead and cook dinner and stuff. Like it's the comedy is like surprising to me. I didn't expect it to be that funny
No, it is funny. My roommate was
in,
laughing,
in the
just
first half.
even out of context things. Um, and there's some in the second half, not as much. It
Yeah.
does become more serious as you get more and more, especially if the FBI starts hinting like we'll take care of Sal, which is already oof. Um, but there's so many scenes in this movie. Every scene of this movie is tense. The thing is, like, some scenes are so tense, like when the cops are trying to break in through the side, and who knows if that police negotiator is being truthful when he's like, I didn't know they were doing that or whatever. Could have been, I don't know. But that even the scenes where he's talking on the phone and stuff or doing his will, they are tense, but due to the even heightened intensity of those other scenes, they feel like respite, even though
Yeah.
it's still, it's almost like doing interval training where like you're jogging in between sprints. It's like, yeah, the jogging's still intense, but at least you're not sprinting now and can almost catch your breath, or at least not die.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like
that's the last exercise metaphor you'll ever hear me make, by the way. I don't have a lot of those in my repertoire. I do movie
the
podcasts.
detail of like just these small little moments. It's like we were saying, but and they call him on the phone and they ask if he has any accomplices, and he immediately says, "Yeah, I have Sal." It's like, okay, you just named this guy, dude.
Are
And
they
they're
just
like,
giving each other's
then they
names?
ask for his name, and then he's like, "What are you, stupid? I'm not gonna give you my name." And they're like, "Just give us any name." And he's like, "All right, Sonny," which is his actual name. It's like, what the fuck? He's, I guess he doesn't
There,
give a
I
fuck.
mean, I do think there's an almost desire to get caught. There's a fatalism there, or at least not caring. I think both of these men. I'm just going to assume that Sal's was in Vietnam. If he wasn't, then in my that's my headcanon.
Yeah, sure.
That's in my Dog Day Afternoon fan fiction headcanon. But it's they're both traumatized. Sonny is also traumatized by having to repress his sexuality and all of that. And so at a point like they have nothing to lose, which is, I mean, that's the only reason you rob a bank. You don't rob a bank because things are going great, even if you are a criminal. I mean, God forbid, hell, I wish Casher was here. He's been robbed. He's been he was robbed at a used game store, which I was like, how desperate do you have to be on that? Yeah, and that guy was an idiot. That guy got
11
caught
years ago,
immediately.
yeah.
That guy got caught immediately.
That's so like of all things to rob a used game store. You're fucking
He's like,
stupid.
hey, Pikachu plushie in the bag.
Like none of the games are in the cases on the shelves, you moron.
It is, yeah, you're gonna have like $200 in the registers
Yeah.
and no manager to open the safe. So stupid. Uh,
Idiotic.
and I remember Casher like trying to talk about like the defense attorney they got, and he was just like, "Man, I don't." It's just like, I don't know. What do you say?
And then yeah, shout out my old boss Craig, because I used to work there too. Craig was like kind of like talking to Casher, like, why didn't you try doing this or that? It's like, what are you, fucking stupid?
I'm paid minimum wage.
I'm paid $9 an hour in 2013. You think I'm gonna fucking risk my life for this dumb fucking game store? Go fuck yourself. Like, that's the most idiotic shit. Like,
It
so
was
what?
such a piece of work. Um, yeah. Anyway, um, but
Yeah.
you have to be willing to throw it all away, and just be untethered from reality.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, hey, it's just like the cops are enabling the spectacle because he goes out. The fact that he goes outside with no gun or anything is crazy. And he just so quickly turns the people against the cops and gets them on his side because it's all fun, part of the spectacle. And like, even the lady that comes out with him is like being interviewed and she's like excited about it. She even goes back inside to be part of it and
Oh
stuff.
no, the pizza man is excited that he's a star. It's very
Yeah.
unsubtle. But
It's
that's the
easy, like social commentary. It's just like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's what happened. And that, I mean, I think this is before the news got completely sensationalized. I mean,
yeah,
people point to different events, even like the OJ Simpson car chase. Like car chases started being on the news more and more. Hell,
yeah.
Anchorman makes fun of that. Um, with, I mean, he's a public figure and stuff, but there are certain crime stories I see on the news that are like, I don't know. Obviously, we should report on crime, but a lot of it is,
Yeah, I remember 6 months of Casey Anthony on like
dude.
Fox and
I still
CNN.
don't give a fuck about Casey Anthony. I never
I
did.
just remember that going on forever when my mom ate it up. And it's the same thing with that.
You remember Natalie Holloway?
No.
Oh, she was a little white girl that got lost in Aruba or killed or whatever, and like my
Uh,
mom was obsessed with her.
it's
Uh,
it's it's kind of the older crowd. A lot of us, no, that's not even true. It depends on the people because now you get a lot of that on TikTok. I
yeah, no,
unfortunately,
that's the thing. We don't watch cable news because we don't have cable.
I
Um,
just know like my mom's generation, Gen Xers, especially kind of the more conservative. I don't know what the correlation is there, but like that Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial was just like nonstop in their circles. I could give two fucks about it, but it was just
yeah,
like,
and we're movie fans,
I
and
know. I
like,
was like, okay, I think both of these people have problems, and
yeah,
I'm not going to pick sides
yeah. I
because they're
think
both gross Hollywood people.
this is evidence piece of evidence number 1072 that actors are crazy. That's
Yeah.
all this. That's all that trial was to me. Is like, don't date actors. That's it.
But it's just like, yeah, it's just shit that's like, you don't need to fill your whole brain up with your real estate, your brain real estate with all this nonsense. I don't know.
No, and
But
I have that problem with news. I think that's become even more common with news now, especially during and after COVID. And we're coming up toward an election that nobody is excited for. Nobody is looking forward to.
yeah, if you're
Um,
watching this, then the debate has already happened. But for us, the debate is tomorrow of these two geezers. One that has been convicted, and the other one can't even remember his last name. It's gonna be crazy.
I don't know.
I'm
It's
like shocked that they're even doing a debate. What's gonna happen? I
we'll
don't really
see.
like to talk about politics too much on here, but I just think it's funny. Because
Man,
it's again, it's gonna be spectacle. Everyone is looking for something to break up the monotony of their lives, and this is a very, very boring summer day, and that's why it's called the name is called, and that's why it's yeah, that's why it works so well. So I get why they changed the name to yeah,
you
the
you said that and again, not to get political, you said that the police in this movie enable the spectacle. Don't you think they kind of do that in real life? Just with
yeah.
the way they act and the way they carry themselves, or
There's
at
a whole
least some
show
police.
called Cops.
Yeah.
It's
Some
fucking
of these
gross.
police who are talking about the thin blue line or have the fucking Punisher logo on
Yeah.
their.
Like we have a show where these poor communities full of like sad domestic problems, drugs, and just real struggles. And then we got the cops going in there and like they're the heroes breaking up all this and that. And it's like, no, and it's just gross. It's like obvious systematic bullshit. And
About the only times I watch cable are if I'm visiting like my parent or my family and there's cable. That's almost like half the reason I visit my parents is because cable is such a novelty now. I just like flipping through channels. Or if I'm at a restaurant and there's something on, usually sports, or if I'm at a hotel. That's about it.
yeah,
And it reminds you like cable was already it was during in the 2000s when the writer strike when reality TV got really big and they realized like, oh, this is a cheap way to make a lot of TV without paying writers so much. And that really started the race to the bottom. um but I mean, now that like everybody except boomers have moved on to streaming, it has just become absolutely scraping the bottom of the barrel. And if you think there's not a problem with the image of policing in this country or the way we talk about it, there's a new Cops season or series or whatever. It's called Cops Reloaded, and it has
oh,
reloaded in like fiery red letters or whatever. It's like, yeah, the way and I know that's the people making the show. It's not like the cops voted on that name in the show, but the way they do that, and and they also act out for the camera, when they're because it's not for the body camera, but campus cops, they came to my alma mater, and they were way more aggressive than they normally are. I used to write the police beat for the school newspaper. They weren't that aggressive as they were on that show. um it's crazy what happens when you stick a camera in front of And this is another one of these. I always wonder about people who talk about certain topics or like criticize the media or talk about media from previous decades. Sidney Lumet is one of those people who I'm like, if he made a movie about today's media environment, what the hell would it be? You know,
Yeah.
obviously he's a very analog 20th century film. He's one of the analog 20th century filmmakers, but like it's just metastasized into this entire thing where our politics has become reality TV even more. And yeah, a lot of it was set up during this era and before. You had McCarthyism before. You had all sorts. I mean, you had scandals. You had the fucking Charles Lindbergh baby. You know, none of it's entirely new. And even our idea of like impartial journalism is kind of a 20th century invention. It used to be like even more political. I mean, it would just be like straight, but like the Arkansas Democrat Gazette is named that because it used to be two newspapers, and one was the Arkansas Democrat because it's basically run by Democrats. Like, and that's why you have a lot of different newspapers with those kind of names. The point is that media has always been this way to one degree or another, and we shouldn't have a rose tinted view of previous decades. Although I do think, even as someone who's practiced a little bit of journalism, that journalism has seen better days, and I do not think that is a controversial opinion at all.
Yeah, I'm having to hold back because the whole satire element of network is the 24-hour news cycle. We'll
Yeah,
get to
yeah, no,
that.
we
We'll
can't
get to
go into
that in
that.
a couple months.
We'll
But
get to that when we get to it.
once the lady that comes out with him starts getting interviewed, and then she even goes back inside, I was like, okay, this movie just clicked immediately. Like, I get what he's going for. This is great. This is funny. Um,
If you're a bank
and
teller, wouldn't you kind of want to get robbed? Like, wouldn't your job be so boring? You're like,
oh yeah, the only thing worse would be working at a DMV.
yeah, no,
Every
that
time I go to the DMV, it like resets my psyche a little bit. I'm like, okay, I could be doing this. Like, thank God. No offense to anyone who works there. I just feel bad. Like, it's
no,
just
it's
for myself. Not
I
really.
I applied to a couple of Department of Human Services job, a couple DHS jobs. Um, and then I didn't get them, so I had to go to DHS to get health insurance because that's what happens when you're poor and underemployed. And I was immediately like, yeah, I'm glad they didn't call me back. I'm glad I didn't. I don't want to work here. That was just me randomly applying to government jobs. So bad. I'd much rather work in a bank. What does bank teller do today anyway? It's all
Well, that's the crazy part is that
people used to go to banks.
COVID hit and they realized we can do a bunch of video calls, work from home stuff. And like now I go to my bank and like pretty much most of the banks I go to don't have an actual person in the window. It's all through the little video harvest or yeah, ATM things. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. You can
No,
still go inside, but
that is a crazy thing when I see old movies. I'm like, wow, look at all these people in this bank. I've never been to a bank with more than four people in it. It's
but
like,
the second time he comes out, now that people are full on cheering for him, it is like a full on like we want this guy to win. Fuck you guys. And that's not even like it gets even better. It kind of actually gets split a little bit when everyone learns that he's gay, but the gay I like that the gay community comes out towards the end as like full force like support. Um, but the fact that the police are like all holding back, no problem. But there's always shots of them like a lot of them holding their guns out, trying to look badass and stuff. And it's like, wow, okay, yeah. Guess what? 1,000 guns can take down a guy. Who would have thought? You know what I mean? Like
yeah, but they're not trying to look badass. They're just, I don't know.
some of them are.
Some of them maybe.
Some of the guys are like kneeling on their like knee and stuff, and like I don't know. It's just it's over the top. I think purposely, but
No, it is. Even the negotiators
it's
like
just funny. It's like a civilian comes up and tackles him to the ground, and the civilian is the one who's harassed by the cops and like grabbed by 10 cops and like taken away and stuff. It's so funny to me.
right.
And he
Well,
just goes
there's a
back
lot
inside.
of I mean, there's a lot of training that goes into hostage negotiation. I don't know all of it, but like
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kicking the hornet's nest if you did that because you still got Sal in there with the some automatic looks like some sort of submachine gun he got, you
Yeah.
know. Who knows where he got that? That's another thing. Is like, is that a military connection? Where did they get that? Because these guys aren't connected to the criminal underworld. They're just these guys are small time.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's just like it adds to the delusion that he's like, okay, we're gonna get a helicopter or a jet and we're gonna go away. Like, you
right.
really think that's gonna work, dude?
Which is yeah, and it's almost like he saw a movie of a bank heist and was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
Um,
If I was
but
in
but
that
that's also a
situation,
realistic thing of like people. I think a lot of people, and you don't want to get political. I'll get a little political. I do think a lot of
I'll
people,
get political. Fuck Donald Trump. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
go
yeah,
on.
we'll say that. It's like, hey, let's not abolish the Department of Education. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Yeah. But like I think you have a lot of people who are itching to use their concealed carry permit, have just seen like one too many action movies. Like I think they're really divorced from reality. Or even like I really liked Alex Garland's Civil War. I liked it more than I thought I would. I went in that movie with pretty tempered expectations. And a lot of it is because I've been a journalist. I'm from a journalist family, so I have that connection to it. And it's more of a movie about that than a lot of things. But in the sense that like I think there's a lot of things like crime that people just have this idea from movies that's not accurate. They think it'll be I don't know if it's like Point Break, or even I'll give you another sort of a heist movie, American Animals, which is a movie that came out like 2017, something like that. Which is also based on a true story. It's actually set in Lexington, Kentucky, where I lived for a few years. Um, and it's these students at this private university tried to do this heist of like rare books and then pawn it off to like some seller in Amsterdam or buyer in Amsterdam or something. And they were literally watching like heist movies and stuff to prepare. My point is like that's how dumb I think a lot of criminals are. But
Yeah.
also, it's not said in this movie, but I almost get the sense just because this movie makes you think about media relations, I almost get the sense that like Sonny and Sal just watched one too many movies and were like, well, we can do that. Or they watched one too many things on the news or read one too many news articles. And there's such a discrepancy between media representation and reality.
Yeah, totally.
That's what something I got from it.
If it
Whether
was
or
me,
not that was intended by Lumet.
if it was me, and immediately from the jump, if my one guy just wimped out and left, and I would probably leave at that point and be like, okay, I'm just gonna give myself up or try and But especially by the part where he realizes the vaults have already been emptied that day. Like, you moron, you didn't try and figure out what time they come to get the money and stuff.
No,
Like,
he did, but he got the wrong information.
oh, okay.
That's what he says. He's like, that guy downtown, apparently he had talked to some guy, but he didn't do his due
Okay,
diligence.
great. Talk to some guy.
Yeah, you talked to a guy, I know.
Yeah, what an expert. First of all, yeah, if I was gonna rob a bank, it would be as airtight as possible. But I'm not an expert. But I'm
Yeah,
just saying, like,
now you're the one who's like, oh, I watch movies, I could rob a bank. But that is
no,
one of the things though. I watched this movie, I'm like, I can rob a bank better than these guys.
I could if I tried. Than in this movie. Not that I would try, but I'm just saying, like, I would have given up so much faster. Like, there's no way out. I'd just say, hey, don't kill me. I'm putting my gun down. Come in and get us, please. I'd rather just go to jail than sit in the heat for fucking 14 hours.
No, but people are pushed to the breaking point, and at a certain point, like, what else do you have but fantasy?
Yeah.
If you're in a boring neighborhood, that doesn't look that affluent, it looks like a working class neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's also just shitty '70s New York. So even like,
Yeah.
but yeah, even like the Lower West Side was like, or is that the rich part? I don't remember. Um, or is it Upper West? Doesn't matter. Even the bougie parts were dirty.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rats. You go to New York for a weekend, you start thinking the rats are cute. You get desensitized quick. You're like, that's a cute one. That one's good. That one looks fat.
I've never seen a rat and thought, yeah, that's a cute rat. Fuck all that.
Not even Splinter.
Splinter is cool. He's not cute.
Yeah, you're
He's a
right.
fucking hero.
You don't ship them.
Ship him with who?
I don't know. April.
What?
Or, Well, if you guys want to read my Splinter X Krang fan fiction,
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the description.
Um,
Give those tentacles some work, Krang.
I do like a lot that there's so much comedy, like dark comedy building up, but then you get the first time a gun actually shoots out, it cuts to everybody like running and reacting and freaking out, and it immediately breaks the illusion of escapism they were in for a moment. And it kind of shifts a bit after that. And it's also funny, like he was willing to go try and fix the air conditioner during all of this.
Bro, I would. Summer heat in New York, I definitely would.
Yeah, but it just adds to the
I
growing.
no, I would. That would be when I would be most likely to shoot somebody. I would tell that would be one of my demands. It's like, hey, if you don't want me to shoot somebody, like you better fix this AC because I ain't
Yeah,
got time. This
totally.
guy can die of diabetes. I don't give a shit, but you better fix this AC.
Yeah, because like, yeah, I can't stand. Yeah, I lived with Sumner. Shout out Sumner, but he would have his house on 79 degrees in the summer, and it fucking bugged the shit out of me so much that I had to get a window unit and put it in my room so I could have it cold as hell in my room, and then he would have
Yeah,
it hot as fuck. And then I think of that time I went to visit you in Kentucky 5 summers ago, and it was getting hot, and we were watching Mulholland Drive, and we both took our shirts off and stuff. It was just like, yeah.
yeah. So we had to because we couldn't hear. I had the shittiest window unit that my landlord with my leaky roof. I wonder how much that rent goes for today. Um, yeah, or just go to any European country. They don't have it for some reason. You know, you can have public transportation, but you can't have AC. Really? Is that
Yeah.
kind of Sophie's choice there? I don't know.
Now, I love when he asks for food, and when they bring up the pizzas, he pulls out his wallet to pay for the pizzas, which is such a good gag. But then, of course, the people love it, and he just gets into it and starts throwing the money to the civilians, making them go crazy. And then, like the pizza deliveries, like stunting for the crowd and stuff. It's insane. Like that to me, that's like the peak of like most of the comedic elements of this film. And then it gets, you know, like the more absurd kind of
No,
level.
it dwindles. It becomes more serious.
And then it, because
I
it's like
I thought
right
it was
after
pretty
this
funny when
that he,
Sal was like, "Dude, tell him I'm not a homosexual." You know, he like because he's Catholic and shit.
yeah, because it's like right after this where we figure out kind of the twist, not twist, but just the reasoning behind everything happening, and it becomes a little different. And I do like the detail of Sal, where you get so many hints of his character, and because I'm like waiting for him to explode, like I said, but it doesn't happen. But that lady's like ready to smoke a cigarette because she's so stressed, and he says he would never smoke a cigarette because his body's a temple for the Lord. I'm like, okay, I see now. This guy's interesting. Like
Yeah,
he's cool enough to rob a bank, but he's not gonna smoke a cigarette. You know, that's way too far for him.
but I hear ex-cons, and granted they're ex-cons, but I hear ex-cons talk about God all the time. People have, people are able to rationalize. I don't know the Crusades. They can rationalize a bank robbery, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
being afraid to fly is, say, I don't know. Aren't you kind of suicidal anyway?
Yeah, what does it matter? Yeah,
Yeah,
fuck
but
it.
you might get airsick. But that's
He was
worse.
ready to kill himself. So I don't know. It's interesting. Now, as soon as you figure out kind of what's going on, that he has a gay slash trans lover, despite having a wife and kids, and that he was doing this because he wanted to pay for the sex change. I was so worried that this would become very offensive very quickly just because of the time. And there are some remarks from the cops and the people outside from time to time, but that's realistic. That was 1974,
Yeah,
five.
somebody when they're on the way to the airport, some guy calls him the F slur in Spanish.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like on the second car. There's like two and like bad mouthing them.
And it is realistic, but also kind of funny that Sal is so focused on the FBI to tell him to stop calling him a homosexual on TV. It's like, I don't want to be lumped in with this. He was just in it for the money. But it's just interesting how visibly frustrated he gets. Like that's his biggest beef the whole movie. Like, but I find it interesting Because for a moment I'm like, okay, this guy. I start to side with Sonny a little bit more, but then you learn it's way more complicated that when he talks to his partner and his partner like reveals like he tried to kill she tried to kill herself.
Mhm.
I guess I don't know what pronouns they're going by, but I'm going to assume her since they want to get a sex change.
It's by today's politics, we would say she, her, probably, or she,
Yeah.
they. Um, they say he because it's pre-transitioned, and the
Yeah.
sentiments there. At least it did make me think about what psychiatric care for gay and trans people must have been back in the day, because
Frustrating.
it, that's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Um, there's also like, I don't know if today a psychiatrist, they might probe, they might like ask the questions, and see, like try to get it out of you, but I don't know if anybody would just be like, yeah, you're a woman in a man's body, I recommend a sex change. I don't think that's how they do it nowadays. I don't think they straight up like they tell you. I think that's
Yeah.
something that the patient has to come out with, to the professional. But that's also when we talked about this in Funeral Parade of Roses. Go check that one out. That's a great movie and conversation. It's in previous decades and certainly centuries, like there was this conflation of transgenderism and transvestism and homosexuality. It was all just sexual aberration. It was all globbed together into this one like othering of these groups of people, um, which some people still try to do. But it's always interesting watching these older things and like they don't have the vocabulary for it.
Yeah.
And that person, by the end of the movie, it's that's the closest we get to a happy ending. They get their surgery, and
Yeah.
they got their surgery in real life
In
and
real life.
changed their name and like, hey, good for you. I didn't even knew. I think maybe I knew they had gender reassignment in the 70s, but
Yeah.
I do
But
I do I do wonder how the techniques have advanced. As a cis person, I've never looked that deep into it. But I can't imagine it was, I don't know. Sounds scary. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. The
Especially in
affirming
the
part.
70s with the way
The
medical
affirming
technology.
part is the part that's important.
Yes.
But she says basically that she was took all those pills to get away from him because like the last 6 months, Sonny's kind of been like a
Right.
menace and like and we realize that he's kind of a fuck and has a lot of problems. And then
Yeah.
hear
Which
from his
again, and how much of that is attributed to like his personality, but also being a veteran and also having to be in the closet,
yeah
and just being in poverty, because he has these kids with this woman. I've heard some people online refer to him as bisexual. I get the sense that he's just gay because he says to his wife, like in the will, he says, "You're the only woman I've ever loved." Which to me, I get the sense that like he's not sexually attracted to women, but he over time became romantically attracted and in love with this woman,
huh
despite her
yeah
biological sex.
yeah
Possibly because I've heard of people doing that, or
also yeah I can see
even today, people will have entire families, and then
yeah
they graduate high school, and the dads might be like, "Oh, by the way, I realized I'm gay." Still happens. I've known people it's happened to.
the also if you're listening to this a huge recommendation for I Saw the TV Glow. It's a new movie out now. That's the ultimate gender dysphoria movie. Can't get too much into it. And I don't want to discuss it in length unless I had a trans person on the cast. But
Yeah,
that's
that is something we will say right now. We're both supportive of trans people and trans rights. We're also two cisgender straight dudes who, if we use the wrong term or something,
we're
we're on your
trying our
side.
best.
Yeah. So calm your tits. No.
Oh, Jesus.
The
No, but I that conversation to me between him and his partner and then him and his wife back to back, that elevates the movie to me, especially when you learn that him and Leon's conversation was all improvised.
really,
Yeah, and it was
holy
like they
shit.
sectioned off the set and like put up some like velvet like or curtain kind of things, and they only had a hole for the camera and a hole for Sidney Lumet to look through. and it took a lot out of Pacino, and he said that Lumet asked him to do one more take and he obliged, but it was like, and he said after that second take that both him and Lumet like cried. I was like, holy shit.
Well, that's so interesting because even and I thought this at several points through the movie, but even at that point, I thought like, man, this is a tight script. This is like really the perfect balance between the dialogue being naturalistic and giving you the information at once, and also being interesting to hear. Because that's always like a trifecta that's incredibly hard to balance. Because I think it's an amateur thing to go too naturalistic. I also don't like it when you go too heightened. Tarantino can pull it off most of the time.
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin and this is just me. Like sometimes his dialogue's too heightened, and it lacks
Too stylized sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too over stylized. It breaks the illusion for me because people don't talk like that.
Some of that is in Chasing Amy and a couple of Kevin Smith's movies.
Oh yeah, Kevin Smith can be that sometimes. Kevin Smith doesn't take himself as seriously. I mean, Chasing Amy's more serious, but he doesn't take himself as serious. So if I hear the banter and Dogma, it's whatever. I can take it. It's Chris Rock is playing the 13th apostle who Jesus owes him $12, so I don't take it that seriously in that movie. I love that movie, and I started rewatching it the other day. Like, and I couldn't finish it. I was like, man, I need to sit down and rewatch this. But my point is, this movie really balances that triangle. But the fact that was improvised, I mean, that's masterclass stuff. And Pacino's pretty method too. So I'm sure this entire movie.
That's why he had hesitations.
Yeah,
and he said he had a lot of stress in his life at the time, and he kept backing out, coming back in, and just wasn't sure about the project. But he got in and really committed. It was cool.
It's well, it did well for his career. I took an acting class once. I'm not an actor. I realize that. That's the main thing I learned. But I'm like, wait, I have to say lines that other people wrote. I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
that was my whole problem with it. I was like, I want to say what I want to say. But the I talked to my acting teacher. I was like, have you seen Scarface? And he was like, yeah, Pacino's a method actor, and he plays a cocaine dealer in that movie. So he's like, that explains that performance. It is weird.
Yeah, but I like the detail that Sonny's delusion is like, oh, well, maybe my partner, because obviously he feels guilty because his partner apparently tried to kill herself because of him. So now, of course, he's willing to rob a bank to get her sex change. So it all adds up really well, but he's still delusional in thinking that she would want to come with him on the plane. She's like, I've spent 6 months trying to get away from you, and you want me to come on a plane. Where are we going? Like, come on, man. And it's kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, but it's still a bit devastating,
Also, and I do think gender reassignment surgery it is shown statistically to be successful in aiding feelings of gender dysphoria. I think his partner, what is her name again, is definitely
Leon.
Or Leon, yeah. They sound bipolar to me, first of all, like outside of the gender stuff, because he talks about doesn't she go to Atlantic City at some point?
Yeah, and she had like a freak out, but also
it sounds like a manic episode.
Well, yeah, but if when you're dealing with that kind of level of gender dysphoria, I can see just having a complete breakdown and freaking out and doing something really rash.
Yeah.
So I
you're in New York and you're like, what can we do? Let's go to Atlantic City and gamble, and you might just have that personality. I don't know. I hate gambling. Because I don't have the money for it.
I don't hate gambling, but I like to do it maybe once every couple of years. Nothing crazy, like $50.
Dude, I don't know. I get into my head. I start like doing the math in my head. I was like, I paid too much attention to math class. I don't know. This is weird. Then I'm just doing math problems. I'm like, that's not why I came out to drink, to do math. I don't know.
That's why you play roulette.
Yeah, there's still math. It's all math.
Not really. It's like a 48% chance or whatever.
It's still math.
If you're a loser. Not me. I win every time.
Okay.
But That's to me the best part of the movie. Now I want to know because they even try and bring out his mom to talk, and it's just like, okay, I like that the detail that when he talks to his wife, she's not even coming out there because she's scared, and then she's like, oh, I can't find a babysitter and stuff like that. That kind of shows her problems that probably have contributed to their relationship. Saying you can't find a sitter to come like talk to your husband who's like being like, yeah, like come on, dude.
There's well, and she seems very insecure and has her own problems,
Yeah.
and um, she is clearly she mentions her weight, and then she mentions, "I know you hate it when I talk about my weight." And that adds to the complex of like, well, he's gay, so he doesn't find her attractive, probably, or at least
But also he's
arguably.
like telling her to not call herself fat.
Yeah. Have you ever had that? But I've had that conversation with women. Have you had that conversation with women? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know what you want me to do here. You're not fat, and if you are, I don't care. Clearly, like I
Yeah.
don't.
Quit being hard on yourself. Low
Yeah.
self-esteem is a tough thing to have. Trust me.
Yeah.
But
Um. I don't know.
but there is that nuance there just from their brief conversation on the phone of their relationship that I find very interesting.
It is, and a little funny. It's like an old
Yeah.
married couple. Like we just have like an old like sitcom married couple squabbling for like the 2 minutes in the middle of this fake heist. It sounds like. Um,
Now, how do you feel about him writing his will, that scene? Because it goes on for quite a while and it kind of slows down the film. And the interesting part of it, because I was like, this feels like it's going on for a bit. But then I read up that Sidney Lumet, one of the things that brought him on was this scene in particular that he liked how slow it got and how it really kind of just painted this portrait of this guy and like I don't know. I thought it went on too long, but then I kind of see how it's interesting that he would be so attracted to that sequence and that they even added a couple of extra minutes here and there throughout the film to try and like pad it to where this doesn't feel as slow as it hits. But obviously this scene was important to him in the movie.
I didn't feel like it went on too at all. I mean, I could sit there with a timer and tell you like as a percentage of the movie what it is, but I had no problem with that. And also I'm a fan of when a movie slows down for a scene to do something like that. Even if it does kind of interrupt the narrative.
Yeah, normally I am too. I just
If
felt
a
like
movie, and I know you are, and I understand why you would think that's too long. I think it's great. I think it shows two things. It shows exactly what the priorities are. He first writes about Leonard, then he writes about his legal wife, you know. And which is interesting when he does leave her more money, but like she's the one with all the kids. So it also tells you like what kind of father this guy is, you know. He's not that invested in his
and we
kids.
never see the kids and he
We
never
never
talks
see
to
the
the kids.
kids.
Yeah.
I think we kind of see him in the background when she's on the phone in the apartment.
That to me is ambiguous because she says she took them to be with somebody to sit across the hall with the neighbor, I guess, while she was on the phone or something. I don't know if that's them or not.
No. Anyway, but and also this is the 70s. This people's relationship with their fathers were different. Um if they had any. Um and so I think it shows that. It also shows that despite all of the amateurism and antics and asking for a helicopter, he talks about his life insurance, and it shows that like he knows this won't end well, and that also tells the audience, it primes the audience for it, even though the whole time I want them to get out, but at the same time like it's not gonna happen, you know, it's not gonna happen.
Well,
um
so it's kind of weird to me that he thinks like it's gonna end in him getting shot or in violence. It's like you could just put down your gun and just like
take a
put your
plea
head on
deal.
the ground and like I don't know.
Could end
Part
that
of
the
him
whole
maybe
time.
he wants to die. Maybe he feels
No,
like
there's a fatalism, there's absolutely a fatalism to
he
it.
feels like so maybe guilty about too many things. Feels like his at least if life insurance might make different people in his family
Yeah,
a bit
he's
better.
like, well, even if I can't get this money, it's a suicide by cop can get money.
That's
I
sad.
have all these other things going on. I don't know if I have a lot to live for. Salda definitely doesn't because he doesn't have any kids or anything. That's probably the only thing that
Yeah.
that Sonny is holding on to. Um, And also, I think on a subconscious level, he is protesting he's using it to manipulate the crowd against the police and kind of give the police another thorn in their side. Like when he's chanting Attica, Attica, which is the largest prison riot that's ever been in the United States,
Yeah.
or the most deaths that's ever been in one. Um, when he's saying that. But also, I think subconsciously as a veteran, and as a gay man, he is rebelling against the system in a way. Part of this is like, well, why didn't you get a job? And he's like, because fuck them and fuck the man and fuck unions, even fuck all of it. Again, it's just fatalism brought by somebody who has
Yeah,
not a lot to lose.
totally. And I'm surprised that he's able to actually get all the hostages into the van, like without something going crazy.
Oh, it's tense.
And he thinks like,
Such simple setup where you see the police snipers and then you see them walk out. That's all you need.
yeah, exactly. And
God damn,
like
this movie's well shot.
you can see at this point, everyone's like, because he fraternized with the hostages so much, and they were all kind of just like casual. And then by this point, they're all sweaty, they're all fed up, they're tired, and kind of even scared a bit. And you can see how fed up he is too when that uh the driver, the black guy, is like, he realizes like, oh, this guy's not, he's a phony, he's a cop.
Yeah, which is funny because as soon as he said, like, make sure you shoot white meat, even I in my head thought, well, that line sounds like it was written by a white guy. And then immediately he was like, you're a cop. Get the fuck out of here. I was like, okay, okay. That's always a pet peeve of mine in movies when you have just non-white people talking in ways clearly written by white people. The biggest pet peeve of mine is when Latinos in movies and TV shows will randomly throw in like, yeah, amigo, like they'll randomly throw in like Spanish 101 words,
Yeah.
and like, I unlike these writers, I actually have Latino friends. Oh, bragging. But they don't do that. Like I've never met anybody who does that ever. I don't know why. Also, it's like you live in Los Angeles. Are you so in your average hour you just don't talk with Latino? Like they don't talk like that to white. It's just not what happens. God, I'm sorry. It's really annoying. It
It
takes
is
me out.
annoying. And
It's
I worked so hard to avoid it when I was writing my book because there is a black character. I was like, I just got to make sure it doesn't sound phony as fuck.
yeah.
But
You're not trying to be like Mark Twain.
oh yeah, I was like, because that does bug me too, and like, I like when it's like,
Well, I always figured if I were to, and I've never written a script. I've written prose. I've written plenty of prose, but
yeah,
um, and first of all, when I write prose, a lot of times I just write characters as like racially ambiguous and just like, it's whatever you think. But the I always feel like if I wrote a screenplay, unless I had something very specific for them to say, I would just write dialogue, for lack of a better word, in your standard non-African American vernacular English, which is the technical term for it, and then just like the actor can bring whatever they want to it.
yeah,
I feel like that's the way. I feel like I would let the actor put any slang in there.
that's definitely the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Scott Keith with my like, I got Kraft macaroni and cheese like on like right here on like next to my
Yeah.
desk. That's how white I am. So like if I'm writing the script, you don't want me being like jive turkey, no cap. Oh my god, like
Chive turkey, bro.
yeah, dude. Actually, might write that. I might write that exact phrase. But that's fine.
Phantom Tax, Grimace Shake, Ohio. No, but anyway, um, it it's funny to me, like, obviously they have to play it up. I'm surprised they didn't try and implement the plan. I don't know where they could have implemented it earlier than that. But I was like, when they get to the airport and you see the actual jet pulling up, it's just insane to me. Like they had to go through all this trouble and pull up an actual
Oh,
jet to pretend like, and he's even at this point like, oh, what do we have to eat on this plane? I'm so hungry. Like it's gonna
Even when
be
he said hamburgers, I was like, are they? I've never been on a flight where they had hamburgers as part of
yeah. Well, I've never been on a flight where they feed me a good meal. It's always just chips.
Yeah, because you're poor. I'm
Yeah.
poor. You make more money than me.
I've never been on a flight that's more than like 3 hours long.
Yeah, no, it's that's why. Um, so this is me. Oh, yeah, whatever this happened.
But that's like just that image of the plane pulling up
It
is
is
just
ridiculous. I'm like,
that's
what?
like the final like laugh for me. Just
It
like, oh
is.
my God.
I also thought during that, like, so do they have to shut down the runway on the airport to film this, or do studios have like does whatever studio Warner Brothers do they just have like an airport set that they use for different movies? How do they do that? No,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
expect
That's a good question.
I'm sure it varies by film,
And the
but
budget was only like 5 million, which is 25 million today, so it's not that huge of a movie. But it probably helps that 70% of it's in one location.
yeah, of course, yeah, that's makes
But
it way, half that budget was probably Pacino.
as soon as the driver keeps telling Sal, like, don't point that at me because if we hit a bump, it's gonna shoot me in the head. Please don't do that. And of course, Sal just like complies. At least at the end of the day, like you can tell that he cares enough to not want to do that on accident.
Yeah,
But
well, just keep your finger outside the trigger guard until you
but
need
as
it.
soon as like he starts saying that like several times, I'm like, okay, there's some sort of setup here. I'm waiting for it. And sure enough, they hit the gun in the
And
in
it, yeah,
this.
and it's the perfect amount of information, which again this movie does well. It's like the perfect amount of information for suspense because
Yeah.
they don't tell you that there's a gun hidden. That would have been worse. It still would have been suspenseful, but it's better to not know exactly what's going to happen, but just have that dread the entire time.
Yeah.
Um,
Because like the police have guns. It's not like we have to know that they have a gun planted somewhere. Yeah, it's just like okay, smart. And then yeah,
I'm
I
almost
like
like, why didn't one of them just drive it themselves?
well, he did.
Well, no, but no, the FBI agent
Well,
drove.
yeah, he chose that FBI guy. Yeah,
Yeah, but what I mean, I don't, and maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but like I don't see why Sonny didn't just drive it himself. I guess they just wanted to have both guns available.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, it makes me think of just the art of suspense. My grandpa, at like 12 years old, he told me, he's like, if you're shooting a horror movie, you want to know that the slasher is at the end of the hallway so we can follow the person down the hallway and be rigid in your seat the entire time. I don't know. It's
No,
unrelated. It
no,
just
it's that
made me
old
think of that.
Hitchcock quote of like a bomb goes off. That's a second of surprise. You know, a bomb is under the table where the conversation is. That's 10 minutes of suspense. You're able
Yeah.
to drag out the emotion. You're able to edge the audience.
It's just the whole movie. It's like, okay, they're gonna arrest these guys, but how? What's gonna happen? Are they gonna get killed or what? But it's just like it's to me, it was like 20 minutes in, I was like, how is this movie 2 hours long? What is going to happen? And halfway through, I was like, once the it became a spectacle, I was like, okay, I get why this is 2 hours. And then halfway through when it's revealed that he has a trans lover, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is crazy. I'm glad it fully makes sense that it's the length that it is, and it works completely, and it isn't a slog in the slightest, and that's a triumph.
In screenwriting, they would call that a complication. But then this movie's great at doing that, and so is his other movies.
Yeah.
We were talking about 12 Angry Men before. That movie just keeps. Or like, how can they keep introducing information? And that shit's hard if you've ever tried to write a story. Like, it's hard to just think of something like, how do I introduce a complication that doesn't also just completely derail this? That actually like entrenches it deeper without just completely moving it into a different position.
The
Um,
best quality you can have is being able to write your characters into a corner and then somehow in a way that the audience could never guess how they would get out of that situation and then successfully and believably have the heroes get out of that
yeah.
situation.
And I do want to shout out Frank Pierson, the screenwriter, who wrote on a lot of. He wrote on the show Have Gun Will Travel. He wrote Cool Hand Luke. Um, he
He's an
wrote
OG.
Yeah, and he another one he wrote is the 1976 A Star Is Born, which I did notice on one of the marquees of a cinema at
Oh
the
yeah.
beginning. It's A Star Is Born is on one of the marquees.
Yeah.
All right, that's a little. I wonder if this is there's some time travel involved, or that maybe it's a reprint of the old one. I don't
Well,
know.
there's so many remakes of A Star Is Born. There's like six.
Yeah, I kind of hate that Bradley Cooper one, by the way. I kind of hate that movie because it's
I
like
give two fucks about it.
it's well. I think my problem is it's too. People make this criticism of other movies now, especially in a post Oscar slap world where the veil of celebrities being cool has completely dropped and Ellen is canceled or whatever. But it has this depiction of show business of like still being run by gatekeepers and Lady Gaga is found by the right person, and I was just thinking like this is why you have fucking talentless people moving to fucking LA and clogging up the fucking freeways because they don't have any skills, but they think Bradley Cooper will just show up to them in a bar while they're singing some shitty song and fucking make them a star. So fuck this movie is directly causing the smog and wildfires in fucking California by having fucking dumbasses move out to that fucking stupid city. God.
You heard it here first, folks. The Harbor is officially anti A Star Is Born, starring Bradley
Yeah.
Cooper, Lady Gaga. Watch this movie instead.
This is a
That's
better love story in this movie.
yeah. Anyway, I think that about wraps up our conversation on Dog Day Afternoon. Anything else you want to say?
No, man, I think that about covered it. Follow me at Scott K Comedy on Instagram. I'm currently the reigning roast battle champ of the Little Rock comedy scene, which is not that big, but I'll be defending my title next month, and you can see whatever other shows I got coming up and stuff.
That's right. As for me, I have a book, a coming of age novel you can buy if you want to support the channel. You can find that in the description below. And also, we have a tie-in film, and we have over 150 of these episodes you can watch. Tons of video, plenty of video essays now. Several are on the way. We're gonna have a good time this summer. Tune in next week. We'll be coming at you with more summer hits, cool movies with summer atmosphere. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.